In the marble corridors of Providence Municipal Court, justice typically unfolds in predictable patterns. Cases are heard, sentences delivered, lives changed incrementally. But on one November morning, something extraordinary occurred that would challenge our understanding of loyalty, integrity, and what it truly means to love someone enough to let them fall. This is the story of three men: a decorated veteran, an arrogant defendant, and a father forced to make an impossible choice. What transpired in Judge Frank Caprio's courtroom that day would become a defining moment in discussions about accountability, privilege, and the courage required to do what's right when it costs you everything. 3 days before the hearing, Roger Williams Park was enjoying a typical autumn afternoon. Families walked tree-lined paths, joggers circled the pond, and 70-year-old Robert Martinez was exercising his German Shepherd along a designated walking trail. Martinez, a Vietnam combat veteran and retired Providence firefighter, had spent 5 decades serving his community. His Purple Heart and Bronze Star sat quietly in a drawer at home, not displayed for admiration, but preserved as private reminders of a chapter in his life marked by sacrifice most people could never comprehend. That afternoon, as Martinez guided his dog along the path, a black BMW appeared, traveling at excessive speed through the park's 15-mile-per-hour zone. The vehicle came dangerously close to striking both Martinez and his dog. Acting on instinct, honed through years of public safety work, Martinez raised his hand, a universal signal requesting the driver to slow down. What happened next was captured by 3 separate security cameras and witnessed by multiple bystanders. The BMW screeched to a halt. The driver, 32-year-old Derek Cole, emerged from the vehicle, visibly agitated. Words were exchanged. Then, without warning, Cole shoved the elderly veteran with both hands. Martinez, caught off balance, fell backward onto the pavement. His head struck the concrete. His wrist fractured as he attempted to break his fall. 3 ribs cracked from the impact. As Martinez lay on the ground, bleeding and disoriented, witnesses reported that Cole stood over him and declared, "Do you know who I am? My father's the police chief. Call the cops. I dare you." Cole then returned to his vehicle and drove away, leaving a decorated war veteran bleeding on the ground. Robert Martinez spent 2 nights at Rhode Island Hospital. His injuries included a severe concussion, 3 fractured ribs, and a broken wrist requiring surgical pins. The medical report documented extensive bruising across his back and shoulders. But the physical injuries, painful as they were, represented only part of the damage. For a man who had survived combat in Southeast Asia and decades of firefighting, being assaulted while walking his dog in a public park, and then abandoned like discarded trash, represented a profound violation of dignity. The security footage went viral within hours. Local news stations ran the story continuously. Social media erupted with outrage. Veteran advocacy groups organized protests outside Providence City Hall, demanding justice and accountability. At the center of the controversy stood an uncomfortable question. Would Derek Cole face real consequences, or would his father's position as police chief shield him from accountability? Judge Frank Caprio has presided over Providence Municipal Court for over 3 decades. Viewers of Caught in Providence know him as the compassionate judge who pays parking tickets for struggling single mothers, who listens with genuine empathy to human stories behind legal violations, who believes the justice system should recognize people's humanity alongside their infractions. But those who know Judge Caprio well understand something else. His compassion has limits. When arrogance replaces remorse, when privilege demands immunity, when the powerful prey upon the vulnerable, that's when his judicial temperament transforms from grandfatherly warmth to steely resolve. The morning of Derek Cole's hearing, the courtroom was packed beyond capacity. Journalists crowded the press section. Veteran organizations filled entire rows. Court regulars who had followed Judge Caprio's career sensed something significant was about to unfold. What none of them knew was that Police Chief Thomas Cole sat in the back row, dressed in civilian clothes, his badge tucked away. He had not informed his son of his presence. The reason he came would soon shake everyone's understanding of what true integrity demands. At 10:30 a.m., the bailiff called the case. The state of Rhode Island versus Derek Michael Cole, charged with assault and battery on an elderly person. Derek Cole entered the courtroom with the bearing of someone attending an inconvenient appointment, rather than facing serious criminal charges. His expensive suit, designer accessories, and dismissive demeanor conveyed a clear message. He believed himself above this process. As he passed the row where Robert Martinez sat, wearing his Vietnam veteran cap, his broken wrist in a cast, Derek didn't acknowledge him. No glance, no recognition, nothing. Judge Caprio observed this carefully before addressing the defendant. "Mr. Cole, you're charged with assault and battery on an elderly person, specifically Mr. Robert Martinez, a 70-year-old Vietnam veteran. How do you plead?" Derek's attorney attempted to respond, but Judge Caprio stopped him. "Counselor, I asked your client. Mr. Cole, do you have a voice?" Derek stood, adjusted his jacket, and replied with visible disdain. "Not guilty, Your Honor. This whole thing is ridiculous." The word ridiculous landed like a physical blow. The courtroom collectively inhaled. Judge Caprio slowly removed his glasses, a gesture those familiar with his courtroom recognized as a warning sign. "Ridiculous," the judge repeated. "Mr. Cole, I've reviewed the security footage. I've read the hospital reports documenting Mr. Martinez's injuries. Would you care to reconsider calling this case ridiculous?" Derek glanced at his attorney, who frantically signaled him to remain silent. But ego is a powerful adversary of wisdom. "Your Honor, with all due respect, this has been blown completely out of proportion. Someone got in my way. I barely made contact, and now I'm being treated like a criminal." The gallery erupted in gasps. Someone? Barely made contact? The man had spent 2 nights in a hospital. Judge Caprio set down his glasses with deliberate care. For anyone familiar with his courtroom demeanor, this moment signaled a significant shift. "Mr. Cole, before we proceed, I want to understand something. Do you know who Mr. Martinez is?" Derek shrugged. "Some guy who was in my way." The disrespect was breathtaking. Robert Martinez, maintaining the disciplined composure of a Marine, showed no visible reaction. But the veterans in the gallery visibly stiffened. Judge Caprio stood from his bench and moved to the front, a rare action that indicated something extraordinary was about to occur. "Mr. Martinez, would you please stand and tell Mr. Cole who you are?" The elderly veteran rose slowly, supporting himself with his uninjured arm. "Your Honor, my name is Robert Martinez. I served in the United States Marine Corps from 1968 to 1971, completing 2 tours in Vietnam. I was awarded the Purple Heart and Bronze Star for valor. After military service, I worked 30 years as a Providence firefighter. I've been a resident of this city for 50 years. 3 days ago, this man assaulted me for no reason beyond asking him to slow down in a public park." Complete silence filled the courtroom. Judge Caprio turned back to Derek. "Mr. Cole, do you understand what you just heard? You assaulted a decorated combat veteran, a man who risked his life for this country and spent 3 decades running into burning buildings to save others. And you called him some guy who got in your way." Derek's smirk began fading, though his arrogance persisted. "Your Honor, I didn't know he was a veteran. How was I supposed to know?" Judge Caprio's response was immediate and devastating. "Mr. Cole, it shouldn't matter whether he's a veteran. Assault is assault. But the fact that you believe it would only matter if you knew his service record reveals everything I need to understand about your character." Derek's attorney attempted damage control, But Judge Caprio had already signaled the court clerk to display the security footage on the courtroom monitor. The video played in absolute silence. Derek's BMW speeding through the park. Martinez raising his hand. Derek slamming on the brakes, exiting his vehicle, and violently shoving the 70-year-old man to the ground. The footage showed Derek standing over Martinez, pointing and shouting before casually returning to his vehicle and driving away. The evidence was irrefutable. "Still think this is ridiculous, Mr. Cole?" Judge Caprio asked when the video concluded. Derek's face had paled considerably. His attorney whispered urgently in his ear, but Derek's ego wouldn't permit complete retreat. "Your Honor, I was having an extremely difficult day. I'd received some devastating news. I wasn't thinking clearly." Judge Caprio's eyes narrowed. "A bad day, Mr. Cole? I've been on this bench for over 30 years. I've seen people who lost their jobs, their homes, their children appear before me. You know what they don't do? Assault elderly veterans because they're having a bad day." The judge moved closer, eliminating the physical distance between them. "Let me tell you what I believe happened, Mr. Cole. I believe you've spent your entire life convinced you're special. I believe your father's position has insulated you from consequences. I believe you've never been genuinely held accountable, and you walked into my courtroom today expecting that pattern to continue." Derek attempted to interrupt, but Judge Caprio raised his hand. "I'm not finished. You see, Mr. Cole, I've encountered people like you before, people who believe their surname, their father's position, their family connections make them untouchable. But here's what you're about to discover. In my courtroom, none of that matters. What matters is the law. What matters is justice. What matters is treating every human being with fundamental dignity and respect." Judge Caprio paused, looked toward the back of the courtroom, and said something that would change everything. "Chief Cole, would you please come forward?" The entire courtroom turned. From the back row, Police Chief Thomas Cole stood, gray at the temples, wearing civilian clothes, his badge absent. He had been there throughout the entire proceeding. He had heard everything his son said. He had witnessed his son's complete lack of remorse. The expression on his face wasn't anger. It was heartbreak. "Dad?" Derek's voice cracked as his arrogance shattered completely. "What are you doing here?" Chief Cole walked down the center aisle with measured steps, each one heavy with the weight of 35 years in law enforcement. He wore a simple button-down shirt and slacks. No uniform, no badge. Just a father watching his son destroy everything he had tried to teach him. Judge Caprio addressed the chief with genuine respect. "Chief Cole, thank you for being present. I know this must be extraordinarily difficult." The chief stood at attention, his police training evident in his posture. "Your Honor, I appreciate you allowing me to be here." Derek was panicking now. His attorney appeared confused, and the gallery sat transfixed. Judge Caprio continued. "Chief, your son appears to believe that your position will protect him from consequences. He's implied repeatedly that because you lead law enforcement in this city, he's somehow above accountability. I'd like to give you an opportunity to address that belief." The courtroom held its collective breath. This was the moment when a father would have to choose between protecting his son and upholding the principles that had defined his career. Chief Cole took a deep breath. When he spoke, his voice was steady but laden with emotion. "Your Honor, my son is wrong. He has always been wrong about that. I've spent 35 years serving this city. I've arrested drug dealers, murderers, and corrupt officials. I've put my life on the line to protect the innocent and uphold the law. Not once, not one single time, have I believed that my badge gave me or my family the right to break those same laws." Derek tried to speak. "Dad, The chief held up his hand, and the authority in that gesture silenced his son immediately. Derek, be quiet. You've said quite enough. He turned back to Judge Caprio. Your Honor, I watched the security footage the day after the incident. I've read the hospital reports. I know exactly what happened. I'm here today not as Police Chief Cole, but as Thomas Cole, a father who failed to adequately teach his son the most fundamental lessons: respect, humility, and accountability. The chief's voice cracked slightly. I thought I taught him right from wrong. I thought I demonstrated what it means to serve others, to protect the vulnerable, to treat everyone with dignity regardless of their station. But somewhere, I failed. And that failure is standing right here. Derek's face crumbled. Tears welled in his eyes. Dad, please. Chief Cole turned to his son. What he said next would be remembered in Providence legal history forever. Derek, I love you. You're my son, and that will never change. But love doesn't mean protecting you from consequences. Love means holding you accountable so you can become the man you're capable of being. He looked back at Judge Caprio. Your Honor, I'm here to state clearly that whatever sentence you deem appropriate, you have my complete support. My son assaulted a decorated veteran. He showed no remorse. He disrespected this court and everything I've spent my life defending. He deserves to face the full weight of the law, and I will not interfere. In fact, if possible, I would ask you to be even more severe than you might typically be, because he needs to learn this lesson now, before he causes further harm. The courtroom erupted in whispers. This was unprecedented. A police chief publicly asking a judge to impose maximum consequences on his own son. Derek was openly crying. Dad, I'm sorry, I didn't mean... The chief's voice became firm. Derek, do you know what I did yesterday? I visited Mr. Martinez at his home. I apologized on your behalf. Though I know that doesn't undo what you did. I looked him in the eye and told him your actions don't represent this police department's values, or this family's values. And do you know what he said? Derek shook his head, tears streaming. He said, Chief, your son needs help, not protection. And he was absolutely right. You don't need me to bail you out. You need to face what you've done and change. Judge Caprio had been listening with visible emotion. Now he spoke, his voice carrying the wisdom of 3 decades on the bench. Chief Cole, I want to thank you for your courage today. What you've done, standing here and placing justice above your natural instinct to protect your child, requires more strength than most people will ever comprehend. He turned to Derek. Mr. Cole, do you understand what just happened? Your father, who could have used his considerable influence to make this disappear, instead chose to uphold the law. He chose to honor Mr. Martinez. He chose to honor the badge he's worn for 35 years. That is what integrity looks like. Derek could barely speak through his tears. Your Honor, I'm so sorry I was wrong about everything. Judge Caprio nodded. That's the first honest statement you've made since entering this courtroom. But apologies aren't sufficient, Mr. Cole. Actions have consequences. The judge's voice became formal. Derek Michael Cole, I find you guilty of assault and battery on an elderly person. This is a serious crime, made more serious by your complete absence of remorse when you first appeared before me. He paused, letting the weight settle. Here is your sentence. You will serve 90 days in the Providence County Correctional Facility. You will complete 200 hours of community service, specifically working with elderly veterans at the VA hospital. You will attend anger management counseling for 1 year. You will write a formal letter of apology to Mr. Martinez, to be read in this courtroom, followed by a face-to-face meeting where you will apologize personally. Derek nodded, accepting each component. Yes, Your Honor. But I'm not finished. Judge Caprio continued. You will also create a video apology to be posted on the Providence Police Department's social media accounts, where you will explain what you did, why it was wrong, and what you're doing to make amends. Your father has agreed to this because, as they say, Sunshine is the best disinfectant for arrogance. Furthermore, after completing your sentence, you will speak to Providence Police Academy recruits about privilege, accountability, and what happens when someone believes they're above the law. Your father will arrange this. You will share your story not to humiliate you, but to prevent other young people from making similar mistakes. The sentence was severe but purposeful. Every element designed not merely to punish, but to transform. Chief Cole spoke up. Your Honor, if I may add something, Derek will also be moving out of my house. He's 32 years old. He's been living under my roof, under my protection, under my name. That ends today. He needs to learn to stand on his own, support himself, and understand that privilege is earned, not inherited. Derek looked at his father with devastation written across his face. It's time, son, the chief said, his voice breaking. It's time for you to grow up. Judge Caprio turned to Robert Martinez. Mr. Martinez, do you have anything you'd like to say? The elderly veteran stood slowly, supported by his uninjured arm. Your Honor, I don't want revenge. I simply want this young man to understand that every person he encounters deserves respect. Age, rank, position, none of that matters. We're all human beings trying to live our lives with dignity. If he learns that lesson, then this entire experience will have served a purpose. The grace in those words silenced the courtroom. Here was a man who had been assaulted, hospitalized, and profoundly disrespected, offering forgiveness and wisdom instead of anger. Judge Caprio addressed Derek one final time. Mr. Cole, you heard Mr. Martinez. A man you assaulted is showing you more grace than you deserve. I suggest you spend your time in custody, reflecting on that, thinking about the kind of person you want to become, whether you want to remain the man who walked into this courtroom today, or if you want to become someone your father can genuinely be proud of. Court is adjourned. The gavel came down. As officers approached to escort Derek into custody, Chief Cole walked to his son. They stood face to face for a long moment. Then the chief did something that affected everyone present. He embraced his son tightly. I love you, the chief whispered, loud enough for nearby people to hear. But I love you enough to let you face this. You'll get through it. And when you do, you'll be better. You'll be the man I know you can be. Derek sobbed into his father's shoulder. I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry. I know, son. Now prove it. The officers led Derek away. Chief Cole stood watching his son disappear through the courtroom doors, tears streaming down his face. This was what authentic love looked like. Not protection from consequences, but support through them. Judge Caprio approached Chief Cole and extended his hand. The two men shook hands, a moment of mutual respect between two men who had dedicated their lives to service. You did the right thing, Judge Caprio said quietly. Chief Cole nodded. Doesn't make it hurt any less. No, the judge agreed. But it makes it worthwhile. Before the courtroom emptied, Judge Caprio made one final statement. Ladies and gentlemen, what you witnessed here today transcends one case. It's about the choice we all face when someone we love does wrong. Do we enable them, protect them, make excuses, or do we love them enough to hold them accountable? He looked around the courtroom. Chief Cole could have used his influence to make this disappear. Instead, he chose justice. He chose Mr. Martinez. He chose the values he spent his life upholding. That is courage. That is integrity. That is what authentic leadership looks like. The courtroom erupted in applause. People were crying. Veterans saluted. Chief Cole. Robert Martinez walked over to the chief and extended his good hand. Your son is fortunate to have a father like you. The chief shook his hand, overcome with emotion. Mr. Martinez, I'm deeply sorry for what he did to you. He'll learn, Martinez said, and when he does, he'll make you proud. I can already see it. 6 months later, Derek Cole walked out of the Providence County Correctional Facility a fundamentally changed person. He had lost weight, gained humility, and discovered purpose. His 200 hours at the VA hospital had evolved into volunteer work that continued long beyond his sentence requirement. He apologized to Robert Martinez in a private meeting that both men described as profoundly healing. Martinez became an unexpected mentor, teaching Derek about service, sacrifice, and the authentic meaning of strength. Derek's video apology went viral, viewed over 3 million times. Young people across the country witnessed what accountability looks like. They saw what happens when privilege meets justice. They saw what genuine transformation requires. Chief Cole attended every one of Derek's anger management sessions, not because it was required, but because he wanted to support his son's authentic change. Their relationship, fractured by that day in court, slowly rebuilt on a foundation of honesty and mutual respect. And Derek Cole, the arrogant man who once declared, "My dad runs this town," now works as an advocate for veteran services, using his story to teach others about privilege, accountability, and redemption. Judge Frank Caprio's decision that day didn't merely deliver justice. It saved a life, healed a family, and demonstrated that sometimes the most loving action you can take is refusing to protect someone from the consequences they need to face. In a world increasingly divided about justice, privilege, and accountability, this story offers a profound lesson. Authentic love isn't protection from consequences. It's support through the consequences necessary to become better. That's the legacy of Judge Frank Caprio. That's the courage of Chief Thomas Cole. And that's the grace of Robert Martinez. Justice served. Lessons learned. Lives transformed.